Right, good evening. Thank you guys for coming. This is fun. So this is our first of the regular Yin classes. Because we've got a couple students that are fairly new to Yin, I'll just do the brief recap. So basically, this is longer holds. We're trying to get deeper into tissue than we are with a traditional practice. We're not going to get sweaty here necessarily, but we are going to be expending some effort, mostly mental effort. We want to try to relax as much as we can in each pose, because relaxing is allowing us to get into that deeper tissue, which carries a lot of our flexibility. If we're just working on muscle flexibility, that's only about half of our total flexibility potential. So this will get really deep. It will help to nourish the joints, especially the lower back, the shoulders, things like that, the hips, areas that we all really need. So this will be a very contemplative practice. There's going to be a lot going on internally. So there can be emotions happening, there can be frustration, but the main thing is to try and continue to work on the pose. If you're feeling pain, drawing back, right? So we're only going to that, what we call the soft edge. So we get into the pose, whatever pose it's in. So if we're in a seated forward fold, we can let the head droop down, that's okay. In a regular practice, I would generally cue sitting tall. We're making sure to stack all the joints and then reaching forward, but not breaking posture too much. So we can come down, but we're creating opposition between the crown and the seat, right? In Yin, we're still doing that same thing. We're still straightening first, but then we could just relax and come down as far as our joints are gonna let us, because we're not moving. We're not gonna move to another pose, which is generally what we need to do for vinyasa, is tighten up, right? We need to tighten and protect the joints because we're moving. But for this, it's okay to kind of let things drop as long as we're not creating pain. So we come to that soft edge. So let's say here I'm feeling a medium to mild sensation. That's as far as I'm gonna go, right? I can, if I'm starting not to feel anything after a couple of minutes, I can go a little deeper, right? I can create more stretch and stay a little curious in the pose, but only if we want to, right? So letting gravity do most of the work here. And this is a very simple pose. We'll do ones that are a little more complex, but just to kind of let things collapse and do what they need to do. We're going to stay in poses somewhere between 2 and 5 minutes today. Always an option to come out or to change things if you are A, feeling pain, B, not feeling anything at all, or if you need some sort of an adjustment. So the first, say 30 seconds to a minute of a pose is going to be what I like to call making friends with the pose. We're figuring out what we need to do to be comfortable in that pose and to work the areas that are mentioned. From then on, it is kind of a mental game to stay still and not fidget too much, right? Once we get set in our spot, we don't want to keep moving around and readjusting. We want to try to stay. What's happening there is we're going to be going between our stress response and our calming response. We're going to have a stress response from putting stress on our body. It's good stress. We're not hurting ourselves. But then we're going to be bringing ourselves back to calm. And that's what Yin is all about, finding that balance between the two. And we can really, in addition to getting those benefits of the nice stretch and the health of the joints, also to have a mental component where we're working on mental strength and emotional strength. So we're going to start in just any comfortable seat. Let's sit nice and tall to start with, draw the shoulders back, release them down, and then just let everything kind of settle. So I'm not creating any effort here aside from keeping good posture. And the theme that I've chosen for today is malas. So malas are prayer beads, or just stones. We've also got stones here too. I've only got 2 malas here, so we'll have to share. We're going to do a short meditation with malas. So malas are a prayer bead. They have 108 beads on them. And you go through, and the traditional way to do it is to start from the center, which is this larger stone. Take one to the side in your right hand between 2 fingers. Take 1 breath in, and 1 breath out, and then move slowly to the next beat. 1 breath in, 1 breath out. We're not going to do all 108, so people have a chance to breathe and feel these, feel what it's like. These are a nice weight. Stones have different energy. I'm not going to get into that too much today, but these are very special malas. These were created by Donna Mosca from I don't remember what her studio is called now. She's in Burlington. She's a really nice studio down there. So this one is Jasper. This is very first chakra, very grounding. So if that's something you need, you could use the Jasper, very calming. This one is Amethyst. It's very spiritual. I spoke this weekend to a gal who knows a ton about stones and things and all the energies that go with it. And she said, this is for stability, or what was the word? I'll say stability during times of change. So that's what she said it was about, which is very cool. So nice purple. This is a quartz that has some purple in it. And then, like I said, Jasper. These stones they just have a word on them. So we can use them, if we don't have a mala, we can use them to just contemplate the word. So I'm gonna have you guys come up and decide what you'd like to practice with today, and then we'll switch. So again, just a short meditation. We'll do this for a few minutes.
So with the stones, you don't like take a breath in or like you do with
You could contemplate while doing breath. Yeah. Would they like to try these malas? Amethyst? Sure. Yeah, spirit stone.
stretch perpetually. No, my son is. Oh.
All right. So we're going to do about a 3-minute meditation. I'm going to take one of these as well. And we're just going to contemplate what we have in our hands. You know, having a stone or a mala gives some comfortable weight. It's something to hold on to. I mean, people use worry stones all the time for that purpose, to, you know, for calming and just to feel comforted. And especially something like the mala, those were created by somebody with a lot of love. So taking those thoughts and just spending some time with ourselves, contemplating the word that we have or any mantra we want to create. Slow, deep breaths. Take another 3 slow, deep breaths. Feeling our mala or our stone. Locking in our mantra, whatever it may be, something we chose for ourselves. And then with the last exhale, let's put our stone or mala to the side. Would anyone like to see one of the malas if you had a stone or vice versa? Okay, okay. All right, we're gonna move to our first pose, which is butterfly pose. So we're gonna bring our legs out to the sides a little bit, our knees out, bring the soles of our feet together. And we're gonna sit nice and tall. We don't need to draw the heels in too much. So we'll leave some space here. Like John's doing, if it is more comfortable to put something under your seat, like a blanket, that really helps with your lower back. So that might be a great option. So I could take, because I've got a big thick blanket, if that's too much, you can just bring it out a little bit. So it's not as many layers. And then you can bring your seat up a bit for the time we're gonna spend here, which is just about 4 minutes. So we're gonna settle in, let the knees drop down. And I do wanna offer an option if you want to turn this into a forward fold. So we would grab onto our toes here and release down. Again, like I said at the beginning of class, you can let your head droop as much as you want, or have a little muscle so you're keeping your head up. If it's uncomfortable on your neck or back to do that, there's always an option to use some blocks under your forehead. If you really need some space, you can use a bolster. This looks a little silly, but I've done this several times and it definitely works. So just balancing it on the feet and letting it come to my forehead. So use any version you like, come to the soft edge, make friends with the pose, settle in for these first couple minutes. Thinking about our malas or our circular stones, things that are weighty that have some ability for us to be comforted by feeling that weight, but also noticing the shapes that they are creating. So the circular nature of the mala, the circular beads, the circular stones, reminding us of all the circles in nature, all the cycles in nature. Bringing that back just to our breath. Thinking of our breath and our heartbeat, our circulation. And feeling those cycles occur within our body. Thinking about the yin and the yang, the light and the dark, the warm and the cool, daylight, nighttime. Feeling that energy we're creating as we inhale, the yang energy, and then the exhale with the yin energy releasing. Opposite but related forces. Creating one whole. Cannot have an exhale without an inhale or vice versa. Maybe finding comfort now in our pose that we're in. Notice if we are feeling any pain. So really tuning into the body and seeing if we're feeling those pain signals. And I get that question quite a bit. What's the difference between, a good stretch and having that that positive work into the body, or having pain and potentially creating damage? So pain would be like encountering a flame out, wanting to pull back. Whereas that stress might be that mild to moderate tingling, just that feeling that we've come to the edge, figuring out what that is for ourselves. About 30 more seconds in this pose. Keep your breath moving. On our next inhale, let's start to straighten a little bit. Go easy on yourself. We've been in this pose for a few minutes. You can use your hands on your head to help draw it up a little if you need that support. And then we're going to come to a gentle back bend as our counter pose here. So we're going to take our hands behind, underneath the shoulders, and roll shoulders back. You may straighten the legs, absolutely, yeah. So we've been in that hip flexion for a while. Take some movements here. So our counter poses or digestive poses allow us to receive the benefits of the pose that we were just in. So this gets the joints kind of worked back in. You're releasing the stress that we've just created. And you may feel a cool sensation of energy rushing to those areas that we just put some gentle stress on. So take another 10 seconds or so here, a couple more breaths. Once we're feeling good, like we've completed our counter pose, we're going to enter our next pose from standing. We're going to come to a yogi squat or malasana. We're not going to stay as long in this one because it can be intense if we have tight hips. So from standing, let's take the feet a little wider than shoulder width apart, and the feet can come out to the corners of the mat just a little bit. And then we're going to sink the hips down. So if we're feeling some fear here, oh, I can't go any further than this, we probably don't want to do our squat. We want to do something else. So we can, instead of our yogi squat that way, we can come to our back and do happy baby. So lying down on our back, grabbing to the outside of the feet, and then pulling the legs through like this. Very, very similar shape, but very nice and supported rather than being in that pose. Good. Yep, so otherwise we're sinking down into our yogi squat. We're gonna try to keep our feet flat on the floor if we can. If we can't and our heels keep coming up like this, we can use a blanket underneath our heels, if that's feeling okay. So let's settle in, again, make friends with this pose. We'll be here just about 2 minutes. If we are in happy baby, coming to a place of stillness and allowing gravity to pull the legs back. Maybe widen the feet a little bit more. Always an option to come back down to butterfly or just to seated if we're feeling a lot of fatigue or tightness or pain here. Noticing our breath, that's going to tell us if we are encountering stress or if we're okay. Our breath is becoming shallow, shaky, and we should take it a little easier on ourselves. So unlike our vinyasa class, I'm not going to stress that you do any specific position here. So instead of saying, okay, make sure to keep your posture, if you feel like you want to round a little bit, that's okay. If you feel like you want to sink a little bit more through the hips, that's okay. If you want to come narrower or wider, just find what you need in your body. That's what this practice is about. Two more cycles of breath. And as we take our last exhale, bringing our hands out behind us and just rolling back to sit. We can take a similar position as before, extending the legs. That feels good. Drawing back a little bit, maybe moving. So we're going to return to Malasana, which is garland pose, named after a mala, a couple of times today. Take your time. All right, once we're feeling ready to move on, we're going to go to dragonfly pose, excuse me, dragonfly pose, which is a wider leg stance. So we're getting again into the lower back. We're doing a lot of lower back work today. So from here, as wide as is comfortable for us, we're going to bring the hands a little bit forward and keeping posture initially, but like I said before, allowing things to drop down. So this will feel a lot different than our butterfly if we did butterfly with that fold. As before, staying curious, using whatever materials we need, if we need a block or a bolster under us for that support. So spend the first minute of the pose figuring out what we need. It can be under the head, it can be under the hands. blocks obviously have a couple of heights available. So for me, I would probably, if I wanted to put it under my head, use one block on the lowest setting, one on the highest, and this would be fairly comfortable for me. The legs do not have to be absolutely straight. Working on relaxing into the pose, making it work for you. Feeling our energy release down toward the mat and the floor here. This is a pose of deep surrender. Noticing if we have any restrictions that we're creating for ourselves in the lower back, in the glutes. If the legs are restricting us, or hamstrings are really tight, we can always bend the knees. We can put blocks or a blanket under the knees if we need to. We're feeling that we have that restriction through there. Going back to our mantra, if we had one from earlier, keeping that in our mind as we try to relax through these difficult, stressful poses. We get a lot of stress on our back here. De-stress. But still, it's not always comfortable. Finding that soft edge. Continuing to relax. We're going to take 3 more cycles of breath here in this pose. As we finish our last cycle of breath, moving up slowly like before. Starting to deepen the breath a little. And coming back to our sunbather pose. Breathing into the center of the chest, taking any movement we need. Slow and gentle. Once we feel good and countered with that pose, we're going to come back up to our standing and go to our garland pose, our malasana, one more time. So again, feet a little wider than shoulder width. And then slowly sinking down. Again, if we feel like this isn't going to work for us, if we can't go any deeper than this, then I recommend the version on your back, just doing happy baby. Otherwise, continuing to sink the hips down, bring the elbows into the knees. And then from there, it's all you. It's all what you want to create in your body. Just eventually working on stillness and finding that soft edge. Mild to medium sensation. If we go a little too deep, if we are feeling extreme sensation, that is actually counterproductive. It's not going to give us as many benefits as mild or medium sensation. Everyone is different, so making the practice your own. Honoring what your body needs. Two more cycles of breath here. And for those who'd like to come out, we can do the same as before, bringing the hands behind and then sitting back. If you'd like a little extra here, I'm going to offer an inversion. We're going to come to dangling pose. So we're going to take our hands down to the mat and slowly straighten the legs. So this is going to be a standing hold. Bend your knees as much as you need. We're not going to be here super long. Giving an option for a little inversion and a deeper stretch. Always an option to come and sit down if we need it. Try and relax and release as much as you can, especially in the lower back. Three more slow, deep breaths. And then on our last exhale, planting our hands back down, coming down to seated in a way that is comfortable for us. And taking some counter pose to what we've just done. Everyone feeling okay? Good. All right. So we stretched out a little bit. We're going to switch gears. So we're going to take the legs around and come to hands and knees. And work toward our first dragon pose. So we're going to lift one leg up, doesn't matter which. Keep the other leg down. So that knee is going to be down. We need some padding under there. Definitely do that with a blanket. Or yeah, like those, like a garden kneeler, those are awesome. Yeah, those are really helpful. They also sell mats that are like just a piece of a mat that you can get that you can place under your knee to kind of double things up. All right, so working from here in our dragon. So thinking about perhaps moving that front leg forward a little bit, allowing the hips to collapse here, and then finding what's going to be comfortable for us. So we don't want to have too much strength into the hands, just kind of pumping. We can also lift the torso and come to here if we feel like we just want to work only on the hips and we don't want to fold forward so much, because we've done a lot of that already today. So that's up to you. So nice and stable. This uses a little more muscle, obviously, than the other poses where we're just trying to work for complete surrender. Dangling, of course, we're working into the legs, trying to straighten there. But for our lunge or dragon pose, let's let our body do what it needs to do. So letting the hips sink down.
Okay, put your arm on this side.
Mm-hmm. You can if that feels better. Yeah. So that would be an inside dragon or a lizard pose. If you go really, you can also go really deep with that. But we're kind of staying high here. If you want to go deeper, that's up to you. We don't necessarily need to worry too much about keeping the hips level or anything like that, as long as we're not creating pain. Let's keep breathing. Coming back to contemplate our malas for a moment. So the malas have 108 beads. Some would say that this is representative, the numbers 108 will be representative of 1 being God, 0 being the self, and the 8, if you turn it on its side, is an infinity symbol. So the relationship between God, ourselves, and infinity. That motion of moving through the path, starting from the guru bead and breathing and coming through, can symbolize the path of our life. We're feeling our stress start to rise here. This can be a pose that releases a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of anxiety that lives in the hip joint. We do a lot of sittings, can be very tight. Can be a strong emotional release from the hip. I've definitely experienced that myself.
I'm finding that the biggest strain is my arms.
Okay. So maybe using the blocks for that, or coming up. So we can straighten our posture and put our hands on our knees.
So it should be in your hips, not in your, shouldn't be.
It can be, but if it's creating too much stress and we want to focus on the hips, we come to here. Yeah. So definitely take it easier, because like I said, we've done a lot of folding forward already. So this may be a better option. About another 30 seconds here. Switch to the other side, continuing to breathe. Trying to make this comfortable for ourselves. Slowly starting to move out now. Let's bring the hips back. We can take that one leg back, so we are in our tabletop pose here. Take another movement or two, side to side, like before. We don't have to spend too long here because this pose is its own counter pose. So when we go to the other side, we'll start to feel that flexion in the opposite hip, the extension in the hip that was previously flexed. So working up slowly to where we need to be. Working on finding similar sensation on the other side. So not trying to find same shape, but similar sensation, because the shape may be totally different. If you have one hip that is a lot tighter than the other, for instance. Noticing any tension anywhere in the body that can be released using our breath, especially on those exhales, releasing any extra tension. Again, about 3 more cycles of breath. We're done with our 3, bringing that forward leg back, coming back to our tabletop, taking some movement. When we're done, we're going to come all the way down to our belly. We're going to move to Sphinx pose. All the way down and elbows underneath shoulders. Letting the hips press down into the mat, relaxing down. You can have your shoulders back here and have your head lifted like we do in our vinyasa class, or you can let your head dangle if you want to, or we can put our hands on top of one another and rest our forehead here. We do want a gentle back bend, whatever we're doing. So we can create a gentle back bend here. If you need a block or a bolster under your forehead to help with that, I can grab something for you if it's out of reach. You want to try and create that for yourself without putting too much stress on the neck. Do you want a blanket or something, Pam?
No.
Or a bolster?
No.
Okay.
I'm just trying out something different. Didn't work.
Sure. Again, trying to use as little muscle as possible. Checking in, noticing if we have any stress or pain, or holding or clenching anywhere. Trying to release and relax as much as we can. Melting down into the mat. Start to move out of our pose, coming up a little bit, taking away any props we had. And then taking whatever pose is comfortable. You may want to take a child's. You may want to come up to a kneeling and move around a little bit, or seated. That's up to you. Take the time that you need here. Breathe. All right, when we're ready, coming to seated and finding our bolster for our last couple poses here. So we're going to take our bolster and we're going to put it behind us. Just come to a seat. And then when we're ready, we're going to turn and just let the knees fall over and scooch next to the bolster. So this is going to be a supported reclined twist. We're really starting to cool things down. We've done our work phase here. What we're going to do is keep our hand down on the mat. The other hand is going to reach up and over. Big inhale into the side body. Exhale, take that hand down. And then keeping the back extended, we're going to inhale and exhale a couple times, getting lower each time until we come down to the mat. So the side of our head can be on the mat, or I'm sorry, on the bolster, like a pillow. You can reach your arms up a little bit more. But the work is in the lower body with the twist. So if you need to make any adjustments with the legs to make this a deeper or shallower twist for yourself, extending one leg out a little further, or whatever movement here, but we're looking for that sensation in the low back. If you do need some support under one knee, you can use a block. I'd be happy to help place a block for you if you need. Just raise your hand. I can come over and help. We can work the arms up a little further, extending through the shoulders and making this more shoulder work as well. Finding that soft edge here, like in our other poses. Notice if we're feeling any tingling in the lower back or in the arms, shoulders. That's a signal that our body is telling us we need to back off. So in addition to pain, look out for any tingling sensations that are happening. Slowly, let's start to come up. Using the strength of our arms to come back to seated. Take your time. And then we'll bring the knees back up and put that bolster behind us. We're going to go right to the other side. So this again is its own counter pose. These asymmetrical poses work like that. So we're going to turn, and then just like before, lift the opposite arm up and over, slowly rotate, and then using slow breaths, lowering down as we exhale. Another option that I forgot to mention is that we can take our gaze to the other side. We want that stretch through the neck. That may not be comfortable for everybody. So for instance, I'm on my left leg. They're out to the left side of the mat. And then I would look over my left shoulder. Sorry, they're on the right side of the mat. I would look over my left shoulder if I want that stretch. Three more cycles of breath. Slow and even, deep. When we're ready, moving up slowly. We're going to come back to seated, just like we were before with the block, with the bolster behind us. And we're going to go to Shavasana for our last pose. Option here, if we want to keep the bolster here, instead of taking it away, we can come to supported fish. which we just lie down and let the shoulders come out, and the head should be resting on the bolster. The legs can be straight, or they can be in a constructive rest configuration with the feet flat, or we can come back to butterfly. So a few options here. Take what you need for our Shavasana time. It's going to relax us the most. Trying to utterly release here. We're not creating any strong sensations for this. We're not trying to create or reach that soft edge. We're just relaxing. Checking in with our body during this time. Noticing how we feel, areas that are still tense or tight or painful. On an inhale, bringing good, refreshed, renewed energy to that area. And then as we exhale, releasing out the stagnation, whatever that energy was. Thinking back to our mantra, if we had one. Letting that word or phrase lock itself in our subconscious so we continue to carry that with us throughout our week. This practice is meant to settle the mind, settle the body, allow us to relax as we move into our evening, find our rest. About 5 more cycles of breath here. You can use our Ujjayi breathing here if we like, creating that soft restriction, breathing out like trying to fog up a mirror. Breathing in and out through the nose, or breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. Especially if that's difficult to breathe in and out through the nose while we're lying down. And we're done with our 5 cycles, starting to stir, moving as much as we need. Get the blood flowing again, strongly, deepen the breath. And we'll draw our knees into our chest and turn to our side. Strong exhale as we relax to the side. Take about 3 breaths here. And then moving up to a seated position, taking our time. Sit nice and tall. We can take our hands to a mudra. If we want to symbolize the mala, we can bring our hands to our lap, one hand on top of the other, palm up, and then join our thumbs, or lay our thumbs next to each other. Imagine we're holding the weight of our mala there, or our stone. We're allowing that to center us. Bring us closer to the earth, closer to stability and strength and wellness. If you'd like to, you can join me for vibration. So we're going to do the sound of Om. Let's release the breath that we have and then take a nice deep breath in, exhale and say Om. Om. Breathe. Thank you guys so much for coming tonight to our inaugural class. Hope to see you again, and please do let me know how this felt for you. And over the next couple days, you may feel some, shifts, especially if this is your first class. Please do hydrate. Have a great evening. Namaste. Thank you.
I think it's some practice to like relax into the pose.
Yeah.
Because I'm bracing myself.
Yeah, I'm doing the same thing. It's hard to relax.
Yeah.